I saw a bunch of people doing this where they talk about the 23 books that they wanted to read in 2023, and I think 23 is like a really good sized list because it allows for so many other books to sneak in there. So I've compiled my own list of 23 books I want to read in 2023, and I have divided it because I like things to be organized. So I have divided it into 5 sections. All the first ones are 5 books each, and the last section is 3 books. The sections of this TBR will be sci-fi that I want to read, international lit fic that I want to read, books that honestly, it's like the title or the cover just make me think I'm gonna love them, books that I feel like I should have read by now, and the fact that I haven't, it's kind of bothering me, so I should probably get to them, and lastly, nonfiction that I feel like I should have read by now. So there's 5 sci-fi books or series that I really want to make sure that I dip my toes into in 2023. The first of which, the one and only Queen Octavia's Lilith's Brood. So this is actually a series of 3 books, so it's quite a chunk, and I think I'll probably start it next year. I think I'll probably start it next month. I am so excited about this. Okay, let me read you the back real quick. Lilith is in the Andes, mourning the death of her family when war destroys Earth. Centuries later, she is resurrected by miraculously powerful unearthly beings, the Onkali. Driven by an irresistible need to heal others, the Onkali are rescuing our dying planet by merging genetically with mankind. But Lilith and all humanity must now share the world with uncanny, unimaginable alien creatures. Their own children. This is their story. So this is just a book about human-alien hybrids on a dying Earth. And there's not much I love more than dying Earth and exploration of what it means to be human. So this sounds so up my alley. I cannot wait. For the others, I don't actually own them, also because I'm a little bit scared that I won't like them, but these are all sci-fi books that have caught my eye. So I will be looking at the Goodreads page just to make sure that I don't misrepresent the book. I need to stop pretending that I'm not reading notes. I am totally reading notes, let's just embrace that. It's set against a backdrop of China's Cultural Revolution. The secret military project sends signals into space to establish contact with aliens. An alien civilization on the brink of destruction captures the signal and plans to invade Earth. Meanwhile, on Earth, different camps start forming, planning to either welcome the superior beings and help them take over the world, which they see as corrupt, or to fight against the invasion. So I guess the 3 bodies are the 2 camps of humans and the aliens. This just sounds really fun. I am otherwise really going into this blind. I have just heard stellar reviews. People have been telling me I absolutely need to read this. And I'm curious. I'm intrigued. It's a little out of my comfort zone. I don't usually read sci-fi that's as heavy on the sci-fi side. I don't usually read about aliens, but I am ready to read about some aliens, and I'm really excited to start this. I don't know when I'll get to it, but definitely this year. Another series that I think I'm gonna love that I need to pick up the first book of is the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin. So am I correct to say that N.K. Jemisin is like the spiritual successor to Octavia Butler, and like that's where the fandom's going? Like, is that what's happening? I don't know. I have not read any N.K. Jemisin, but I have a feeling that I'm gonna absolutely love her work. The 5th season in particular, I think I'm gonna absolutely love. So this is again like climate fiction. So I think the 5th season refers to the climate apocalypse that occasionally just happens on what is now Earth or a pseudo Earth. I don't know. I haven't even read the blurb. This is the way the world ends. Again. 3 terrible things happen in a single day. Essen, a woman living an ordinary life in a small town, comes home to find that her husband has brutally murdered their son and kidnapped their daughter. I have never read this blurb. I was kind of shook by that. Meanwhile, mighty Sanze, the world-spanning empire whose innovations have been civilization's bedrock for 1,000 years, collapses as most of its citizens are murdered to serve a madman's vengeance. All right, let's go. And worst of all, across the heart of the vast continent known as the Stillness, a great red rift has been torn into the heart of the earth, spewing ash enough to darken the sky for years or centuries. Now Esun, the woman whose husband murdered her son and kidnapped her daughter, must pursue the wreckage of her family through a deadly dying land. Without sunlight, clean water, or arable land, and with limited stockpiles of supplies, there will be war all across the Stillness. A battle royale. I love battle royales! A battle royale of nations, not for power or territory, but simply for the basic resources necessary to get through the long dark night. Essen doesn't care if the world falls apart around her. She'll break it herself if she must to save her daughter. I can't wait to read this. I'm like scared of starting this because I feel like I'm just gonna read, like, burn through the whole series immediately. I don't typically read series, but like maybe 2023 is the year that I start. Another book that's been on my radar that I really don't know anything about, and again we'll be live reacting to the blurb, is We by Yevgeny Zamyatin. So this book apparently inspired Orwell to write 1984, and it foreshadowed the worst excesses of Soviet Russia. So it's a Soviet dystopic book, which sounds fascinating. It was first published in 1924. We is a powerful, inventive vision that has influenced writers from George Orwell to Ayn Rand. In a glass-enclosed city of absolute straight lines, ruled over by the all-powerful benefactor, the citizens of the totalitarian society of one state live out lives devoid of passion and creativity. Until D503, a mathematician who dreams in numbers, makes a discovery. He has an individual soul. Set in the 26th century AD, We is a classic dystopian novel. Blah, blah, blah. It was forerunners for 1984 and Brave New World. Suppressed for many years. Remains a resounding cry for individual freedom, yet is also a powerful, exciting, and vivid work of science fiction. I really like classic sci-fi. I read a lot of it in my undergrad, and I'm really excited to read what Russian, like Soviet era classic sci-fi would look like. I don't know if I'm gonna love it, but I definitely think it's gonna be really interesting. There's one more sci-fi novel that made it onto the list, and that is The Road by Cormac McCarthy. And all the context I have for The Road is people telling me it's extremely bleak, and having a visual of Aragorn, aka Viggo Mortensen, walking, looking super disheveled with a young boy who I assume is his son. So what I assume the book is about is that the two of them are on the road trying to find other survivors of some kind of disaster. Love that. Love those stories. Let's find out what it's actually about. Let's live react together. A father and son walk alone through burned America. Nothing moves in the ravaged landscape save the ash on the wind. It is cold enough to crack stones, and when the snow falls, it is gray. The sky is dark. Their destination is the coast, although they don't know what, if anything, awaits them there. They have nothing, just a pistol to defend themselves against the lawless bands that stalk the road, the clothes they are wearing, a cart of scavenged food, and each other. The Road is a profoundly moving story of a journey. It boldly imagines a future in which no hope remains, but in which the father and his son, each the other's world entire, are sustained by love. Awesome in the totality of its vision, it is an unflinching meditation on the worst and the best that we are capable of. Ultimate destructiveness, desperate tenacity, and the tenderness that keeps two people alive in the face of total devastation. Why haven't I read that yet? That sounds amazing. That sounds literally like some of my favorite books. Exploring humanity against a backdrop of tragedy. That is my jam. I cannot wait for these sci-fi books. They range from fun to probably kind of traumatic, but moving. The next category I've kind of shoveled 5 books into is international literary fiction. Now that I've been more intentional about reading as internationally as possible, one of the things I've noticed is I don't have a lot of South American literature on my physical or virtual shelves. So this year I do want to change that, and I do want to kind of dig into a couple of things that sound really interesting. One book I really want to read this year then is House of the Spirits by Isabel Allende. And I know nothing about this beyond the fact that it's a family saga set in South America and there's some magic realism. But if you take magic realism and family saga and put it in good literary fiction and hand that to me, I will devour it. So this sounds great. Isabel Allende weaves a luminous tapestry of 3 generations of the Trueba family, revealing both triumphs and tragedies. Here's patriarch Esteban, whose wild desires and political machinations are tempered only by his love for his ethereal wife Clara, a woman touched by an otherworldly hand. Their daughter, Blanca, whose forbidden love for a man Esteban has deemed unworthy, infuriates her father, yet will produce his greatest joy, his granddaughter Alba, a beautiful, ambitious girl who will lead the family and their country into a revolutionary future. Dope. Sounds really fun. I don't really know much else about it. It has a really high rating. It's been compared to Gabriel Garcia Marquez, who I am still too intimidated by to read, but maybe this year, maybe next year, we'll see. But it does just sound really good, and I think I'm going to save it as like a late summer read, maybe. I'm very excited to get to it, though, because I do want to expand my South American library. It does feel a little bit weird sometimes putting like Western European authors on an international litfic list, but given that Fredrik Backman does write in Swedish and the books are translated and do feel like a culture apart from the one that I live in, I decided to include Beartown on this list. So I know that Beartown is now a trilogy, and the third, most recent book, The Winners, has recently come out. I know that it's a trilogy, I know that it follows a town, and apparently there's a lot of hockey in it. And even though I've lived in Canada my entire life, I am not a hockey person. I am the farthest thing from a hockey person. My father famously would say that we're Canadian, but we're not hockey barbecue Canadian, and we are not. So I don't know anything about this book, but I loved the two Fredrik Backman books that I have read, which were Anxious People and A Man Called Ove. So I am really, really excited to delve into it. And I saw The Winners in the bookshop not too long ago, and it was like that chonky. So I don't know, is this whole series going to be super chonky? Beartown is 430 pages, so it's like a little chonky. A little chonky. A dazzling, profound novel about a small town with a big dream. And the price required to make it true. Ooh, that sounds dark. People say Beartown is finished, a tiny community nestled deep in the forest. It is slowly losing ground to the ever-encroaching trees. But down by the lake stands an old ice rink, built generations ago by the working men who founded this town. And in that ice rink is the reason people in Beartown believe tomorrow will be better than today. Their junior ice hockey team is about to compete in the national semifinals, and they actually have a shot at winning. All the hopes and dreams of this place now rest on the shoulders of a handful of teenage boys. Being responsible for the hopes of an entire town is a heavy burden, and the semi-final match is a catalyst for a violent act that will leave a young girl traumatized. Oh no. And a town in turmoil. Oh no. Accusations are made, and like ripples on a pond, they travel through all of Beartown, leaving no residents unaffected. Beartown explores the hopes that bring a small community together, the secrets that tear it apart, and the courage it takes for an individual to go against the grain. In the story of a small forest town, Fredrik Backman has found an entire world. That sounds really up my alley. I love small town secrets. Who doesn't love small town secrets? Small town secrets are so fun. I don't like hockey, but if it means small town secrets, I can get behind that. These next few I own. I have read two books. Well, I read an essay and a collection of short stories by Chimamanda, and I really want to move to her novels. I absolutely love her writing. It's so evocative, it's so literary, and I am so excited to dig into Americanah probably in February. I'm guessing this is probably going to end up on my February TBR. And this is the story of two young Nigerians who are young and in love, and they depart military-ruled Nigeria for the West. Beautiful, self-assured Ifemelu heads for America, where despite her academic success, she is forced to grapple with what it means to be Black for the first time. Quiet, thoughtful Obinze had hoped to join her, but with post-9/11 America closed to him, he instead plunges into a dangerous, undocumented life in London. And once powerful and tender, Americanah is a remarkable novel of race, love, and identity by the award-winning writer Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. Yeah, I've just really been enjoying reading a lot of international literature, as I've said in many videos before, and I feel like this one describes a very unique perspective that I have heard about but have not really explored much in fiction, which is exactly that, where you come from a country where you're racially dominant and then go to a country where you're suddenly a minority, which is the case for Nigerians coming from Nigeria to the US or from Nigeria to London. I've owned the book for about 6 months now, so it's high time that I get to it. I have another Nigerian novel because this has been recommended to me by so many people, and I realized how short it was when I bought it recently. I found it used, and that's Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achibe. It is short. It is a little thing, and the font is quite large even, so this should not take me very long. And it's the first of a trilogy, and again, I don't know much about it. I just know that it's like a Nigerian literary classic. It is a classic narrative about Africa's cataclysmic encounter with Europe as it establishes a colonial presence on the continent. Told through the fictional experiences of Okonkwo, a wealthy and furious Igbo warrior of Umuofia in the late 1800s, Things Fall Apart explores one man's futile resistance to the devaluing of his Igbo traditions by British politicians and religious forces, and his despair as his community capitulates to the powerful new order. This looks really good. Achibe does not only capture life in a pre-colonial African village, he conveys the tragedy of the loss of that world while broadening our understanding of our contemporary realities. This sounds absolutely fascinating, and I think reading these books close together in time is going to really provide a very interesting perspective, given that this one's more historical and then this one has sort of the modern repercussions of that. I'm really intrigued and really excited to have 2 Nigerian classics, modern classics, on this list. The last book that I have is Ceremony, which is a North American Indigenous novel. I don't quite know what this copy has been through, like many of my books I bought it used, but it has these really beautiful etchings. This really cool deer on the back here. And I don't know a lot about it. This was bought on a recommendation. Set in the insular world of the Laguna Pueblo Reservation, but resonating far beyond, Ceremony tells the story of Tayo, an Army veteran of mixed ancestry who returns home to the reservation. He is deeply scarred by his experiences as a prisoner of the Japanese, and further wounded by the rejection he encountered from his people. Only by immersing himself in the Indian past and its traditions can he begin to regain the peace that was taken from him. Masterfully written, filled with somber majesty of Pueblo myth, Ceremony, a novel that in itself is a ceremony of healing, remains one of the most profound and moving works of Native American literature. My understanding of this book is that it is an Indigenous North American classic about the importance of tradition and culture in finding oneself and one's health and individuality, etc. I'm really excited to delve into it. I know I said that I'm really excited a lot, but I am. These books are just... I forget what I called this list at the beginning of the video, but in my notes it just says, I don't know, these books just seem edgy and I want to read them. So those are the books we're going for. These are just the modern books that I'm like, you know what, that sounds up my alley. First one's A Tale from the Time Being. I just bought this copy this weekend. I've now fallen in love with Ruth Ozeki because of A Book of Form and Emptiness, and I suspect her earlier novel will also move me and make me cry. All I know about this is that it follows a character, a writer, Ruth, not this Ruth, but close enough, who in America finds a washed up diary of a little Japanese girl who documents the days around the 2011 earthquake and tsunami in Japan. While she begins reading the diary, Ruth quickly finds herself drawn into the mysteries of Nao's fate. Meanwhile, in Tokyo, Nao, uprooted from her home in the US, bullied at school, and watching her parents spiral deeper into disaster, has decided to end her life. Oh, lovely. But first she wants to recount the story of her great-grandmother, a 104-year-old Zen Buddhist nun, in the pages of her secret diary. Sounds fun, sounds moving. I think I'm gonna cry, and that's what I'm about. Why do my glasses keep falling today? This one, it's purely the cover and the title and roughly the summary of the book, and that's Our Wives Under the Sea. I have a hold at the library on this, and I cannot wait. I'm so excited. I think there's 6 weeks left. Mary thinks she got her wife back, when Leah finally returns after a deep-sea mission that ended in catastrophe. It soon becomes clear, though, that Leah is not the same. Whatever happened in that vessel, whatever it was they were supposed to be studying before they were stranded on the ocean floor, Leah has brought back part of it with her, onto dry land and into their home. Moving through something that only resembles normal life, Miri comes to realize that the life they had before might be gone. Though Leah's still there, Miri can feel the woman she loves slipping from her grasp. So it's kind of giving me like Annihilation, the movie, but hopefully not the book, because I didn't particularly care for the writing style of the book. And yeah, I don't know much about it, but it seems good, and it has a decent rating, and the cover's cool, and sometimes that's just how I pick my books. Sometimes it's because I think they'll make me cry, and sometimes it's because I see a cover like this, and I'm like, heck yeah, I need to read that. And this is another book where it's like the cover and the title are what got me. In my dreams, I hold a knife. That's so ominous. That's so weird. I love it. In my dreams, I hold a knife. What a title. And then the tagline, 6 friends, 1 college reunion, 1 unsolved murder. Gives me dark academia vibes immediately. I'm ready. It looks like trashy dark academia. Like I feel like it's gonna be a little bit like a Bunny meets If We Were Villains, hopefully, because I really liked both of those. It's told in racing dual timelines. That sounds fun. A dark campus setting and a darker look at friendship, love, obsession, and ambition. That's all I want in life. So this just looks like a thriller where everyone has a dark past and everyone is a murder suspect, and it's all a dark academia backdrop. So does it feel a little trashy? Absolutely. Am I going to devour it? Absolutely. Similarly, These Violent Delights. And I'm aware that there's 2 books with this title, but this is the one I want. I want the one with the obsessive friendship. I think this is also dark academia, and I think it's an obsessive friendship / relationship between 2 male students, and it leads them to do terrible things. That's kind of the vibe I'm getting. When Paul and Julian meet as university freshmen in early 70s Pittsburgh, they are immediately drawn to one another. A talented artist, Paul is sensitive and agonizingly insecure, incomprehensible to his working-class family, and desolate with grief over his father's recent death. That's fair. Paul sees the wealthy, effortlessly charming Julian as his sole intellectual equal, an ally against the conventional world he finds so suffocating. He idolizes his friend for his magnetic confidence. I can't read. But as charismatic as... I'm literally running a reading YouTube channel, but okay. But as charismatic as he can choose to be, Julian is also volatile and capriciously cruel. And admiration isn't the same as trust. Is this just Fight Club? Is the twist gonna be that this is just Fight Club? Because I'm in it, if that's what it is. I actually don't even want to read more. I just want to... Sometimes I just need a trashy thriller, and I love the trashy dark academia thrillers, and I think this is going to be one of them. Hype. I hope this is going to be as fun and as these 2 summary paragraphs make it sound. Okay, the last one on my little list, All's Well by Mona Awad. I loved Bunny. I read it not too long ago. I love Mona Awad's writing, so I bought this firsthand and paid full price, which I don't do very often for books that I haven't read yet. I'm so excited. Miranda Fitch's life is a waking nightmare. The accident that ended her burgeoning acting career left her with excruciating chronic pain, a failed marriage, and a deepening dependence on painkillers. And now she's on the verge of losing her job as a college theater director. Determined to put on Shakespeare's All's Well That Ends Well, the play that promised and cost her everything, she faces a mutinous cast hell-bent on staging Macbeth instead. Sorry, I'm really happy right now. Miranda sees her chance at redemption slip through her fingers. Then she meets 3 strange benefactors who have an eerie knowledge of Miranda's past and a tantalizing promise for her future. One where the show goes on, her rebellious students get what's coming to them, and the invisible doubted pain that's kept her from the spotlight is made known. A potent subversive novel, All's Well is the story of a woman at her breaking point, and a formidable, piercingly funny indictment of our collective refusal to witness and believe female pain. As someone who loves over-the-top Shakespeare stuff, cough cough if we were villains, and as someone with chronic pain, hello, do you want to be best friends? We're going to be best friends, this book and I think. I have a feeling we're going to be best friends. This brings me to 5 books that I feel like I've been meaning to read for so long that at this point I just like gotta read them. It's like weird that I haven't. So the first book is Phantom of the Opera. I have never read Phantom of the Opera. Moi je parle français, j'ai jamais lu le Fantôme de l'Opéra. Je devrais le lire en français. I'm still debating whether I'm going to read it in French or in English because my French reading is slower than my English. I prefer reading in English, but I also want to read it in the originals. I don't know. But I have not read Phantom of the Opera. I've seen the movie. I've seen the musical in London. I've read parodies of the Phantom of the Opera, but I have not read the OG. And I need to. Do I need to tell you what Phantom of the Opera is about? Okay, there's a phantom. He lives in the basement of an opera, and he becomes obsessed with an opera singer. And it's great. That's basically kind of the vibe of it. There's some like love triangle stuff going on. It's just a very like gothic-y classic that explores a lot of fun themes of human alienation, and who doesn't love that? I really need to read this, don't I? If you have any insight as to whether or not I should read it in English or in French, please let me know. Is it worth me trying to read it in French, even though I haven't read a book in French in about a decade? So that sounds like a challenge. Is it a challenge I accept? That's a good question. Now let's move on to the books I physically own and really need to read at this point because I bought them years ago. I was first introduced to the idea of reading Jude the Obscure in the 11th grade when we were reading Tess of the D'Urbervilles, and my English teacher recommended that I read this. And she was my favorite English teacher, and she was my English teacher for several years. I found out she passed away about a year ago now, and now and again I read books that I remember her recommending or her loving, and I've been thinking of her. So this copy of Jude the Obscure has been sitting on my shelf and has been haunting me. So I started it. I'm at chapter 3. I don't love it right now. I might toss it onto audiobook instead, just because I don't read a lot of writing from this era very much. I feel like it requires a lot of patience. And let's be real, the font is tiny. Tiny font and when the font is tiny, I go to sleep. Jude the Obscure is about a young man who's very sad and trapped in a loveless marriage and in love with someone else. That's about all I know about it. I have heard from a lot of people that it's very depressing, and I would just like to show you my favorite Goodreads review of this book. I'm going to put it right here, because when I saw this, I cackled. Just giving you a moment to react to that. So I'm really curious about how this is gonna go. Yeah, so I started it. We'll see if I finish it. We'll see what happens. But I feel like I owe it to Mindy to read this. So I'm going to. Another book that is a remnant of things that I wanted to read back in high school and still haven't is Umberto Eco's The Name of the Rose. For some reason, we watched the movie of this in history class in like the 10th grade. What's kind of cool about The Name of the Rose is like it's the original 7. It's the original serial killer killing people based off the 7 deadly sins. And he's doing all of this in an abbey. So he's killing all the dudes in the abbey in really fun ways. All I remember from the movie is that he poisoned the edges of pages of a big book. Might have been the Bible. I don't know. I don't remember. So that every time they go to lick their finger to turn the page, they like get more poison. And that's the way he killed one of the guys. That might be all I remember from the movie about this. But I've been wanting to read the book because in the movie there's also only 4 murders instead of all 7 that there are in the book. And I think it's also like a mystery, a little bit of a detective novel, and it's quite a classic. The back just says, "You will never look at death or life the same way again. How did... My eyes are gonna hate this, aren't they? I'm gonna probably toss a copy on my e-reader because this, I might suffer if I try to read the whole thing like this. Whenever I have an edition of a book that I feel I won't be able to like sit with, I usually tend to get like a second, like either an ebook or an audiobook of it and sort of alternate how I read it. I find that helps with attrition. It helps me keep actually reading the book. So yeah, this is hype. Murders in the Abbey. Why not? In like the 13th century, like Middle Ages. I never read stuff set in the Middle Ages, so this is going to be really out of my comfort zone. But that's a good thing. I might hate it. Who knows? But I want to read outside of my comfort zone. So we got this guy. Also outside of my comfort zone, probably As I Lay Dying by Faulkner. This is a book that I just know it's a classic. What is it about? I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea. Is someone actually dying in this book? I don't know. The only Faulkner I've ever read was A Rose for Emily, and I thought it was really boring until the reveal, and then I thought it was amazing as a short story, and it's great, and it's super gothic and super creepy. And that short story, reading it, is what convinced me to be like, oh, maybe I would like Faulkner, because this man seems to have a grim taste, and I'm into that. Okay, so I just like leafed through this and I realized the actual book, As I Lay Dying, is a novella. It's like 150 pages in this, not even, and the rest of this book is just criticism and analysis of it. So I have some kind of like, I have a Norton Critical Edition, which I found for $1 in a used bookstore at some point. So if I love it, I get to read all about it. But also I need to stop being intimidated by the small font and what feels like the heft of this book, because actually As I Lay Dying is not that long. Why is there a shack on it? Why is there a shack? I know nothing about this. What is this book about? I should find out what this book is about. As I Lay Dying is Faulkner's harrowing account of the Bunton family odyssey across the Mississippi countryside to bury Addie, their wife and mother. Oh, that's sad. It's narrated by everyone, including Addie herself, as well as others. The novel ranges in mood, from dark comedy to the deepest pathos. Considered one of the most influential novels in American fiction in structure, style, and drama, As I Lay Dying is a true 20th century classic. Okay, I am into road trip books. I am into journey books. That's why The Road is on here, for starters. So maybe I will actually really like this. I have just been putting off reading it because for some reason, I don't know, I thought I wasn't interested. And it still doesn't quite vibe with me. But I think 2023 is the year that I finally face this book and find out if I actually like it or not. You thought the sci-fi section was over. It is not. Here is something that my boyfriend found for me for not a lot of money, $3, for the whole box set of A Wizard of Earthsea by Ursula Le Guin. Pretty sure I got this before the pandemic. I still haven't read it. Have I seen the movie? Absolutely. Have I read other Ursula Le Guin? Absolutely. Have I read this? No, I have not. Have I slipped the books out of their case? No, I have not. Let's look at their covers. Let's find out what's going on. This reminds me so much of like my early edition Narnias. Oh, they have those like yellowed pages that like look almost turmeric-y in the light. Oh yeah, it smells like my Narnia books. In his day, Ged, called the Sparrowhawk, became both Dragon Lord and Archmage. His story is told in many songs, but this haunting tale of a proud, lonely boy in the time before his fame. This is the tale of it. You know what I was trying to say. It is the tale of wizards, dragons, and shadows, played out in Earthsea, a world of numberless islands and vast oceans where mages, looking for adventure, wandered, working magic. My understanding of Earthsea, and what I remember from the movie, which I saw probably like 15 years ago now, is that this first book is about wizard school. Wizard school's fun. We all love wizard school. And there's dragons. And then the second book has boats. And then the third book has more dragons. Cool. And for some reason, my second book also has these scribbles in the margin, because someone decided that was that was the way to go. But that might be why these books were $3. All of them together, which is a total steal. Yeah, so I have owned this for a really long time. Why haven't I read it yet? I like classic sci-fi. I like classic fantasy. I like Ursula Le Guin. It's just been sitting on my shelf. So 2023 is the year. And lastly, there's 3 nonfiction books that have been like sitting like a little monkey on my back, where I feel like at some point someone's going to be like, what, you haven't read that? And it's going to haunt me. The first one is Sapiens. I feel like everyone and their dog has read Sapiens, and I just haven't. Like, people who don't read have read Sapiens. And my understanding is it's the history of the human species. I don't know how much of that is scientific, how much of that is cultural, how Eurocentric it is. My understanding is that the writer is Israeli, so I'm hoping that it's geographically interesting. I think there's a little bit about like Neanderthals and Homo erectus and Homo habilis. Like, there is some stuff about like human evolution in it. That's kind of all I know about it. Please let me know if it's worth reading. A lot of people that I've talked to say that it's like really good. But I'm a skeptic. I don't know why I've been avoiding this book. It's just like, again, been a little monkey on my back. I just haven't picked it up, but I feel like I should. And holy moly, does it have high ratings. I looked at the Goodreads synopsis real quick, and I do have to say the like little tagline's very gripping. 100,000 years ago, at least 6 human species inhabited the Earth. Today, there is just one. Us. Homo sapiens. I am very curious. I won't lie. I am very curious, so I do want to pick this up this year, and let's find out what this is all about. Let's find out more about human evolution. And from the past, I now bump right into the present with wanting to read Hood Feminism. This is a book about intersectional feminism and sort of conflicts that exist within the movement. That's my understanding. The subtitle of this book is Notes from the Women That a Movement Forgot. Today's feminist movement has a glaring blind spot, and paradoxically, it is women. Mainstream feminists rarely talk about meeting basic needs as a feminist issue, argues the author. But food insecurity, access to quality education, safe neighborhoods, a living wage, and medical care are all feminist issues. All too often, however, the focus is not on basic survival for the many, but on increasing privilege for the few. That feminists refuse to prioritize these issues has only exacerbated the age-old problem of both internecine, do I know that word? Let's find out if I know that word. Destructive to both sides of a conflict. That's a great word. That feminists refuse to prioritize these issues has only exacerbated the age-old problem of both internecine discord and women who rebuffed at carrying the title. Moreover, prominent white feminists broadly suffer from their own myopia with regard to how things like race, class, sexual orientation, and ability intersect with gender. How can we stand in solidarity as a movement, Kendall asks, when there is the distinct likelihood that some women are oppressing others? This sounds fascinating. This sounds absolutely fascinating. I've been really enjoying delving into feminist nonfiction over the past little while, and this book somehow, I like swerved around it. It just wasn't on my radar for whatever reason, but I saw a couple of other content creators talking about it, and it seems really up my alley. Several of my Goodreads friends have read it and praised it very, very highly, and I do trust their judgment. Hi, Willow! A cat has appeared. The fact that I haven't read this is a little bit shameful. The last book that I want to read is Braiding Sweetgrass. As a botanist, Robin Wall Kimmerer has been trained to ask questions of nature and the tools of science. As a member of the Citizen Potawatomi Nation, she embraces the notion that plants and animals are our eldest teachers. In Braiding Sweetgrass, Kimmerer brings these lenses of knowledge together to show that the awakening of a wider ecological consciousness requires the acknowledgement and celebration of our reciprocal relationship with the rest of the world. For only when we can hear the language of other beings are we capable of understanding the generosity of the earth and learning to give our own gifts in return. My understanding about this book is that it's about Indigenous knowledge of nature and the natural world, the world around us, and how that blends or not with our scientific understanding of the world around us. As a scientist living in Canada, I am extremely, extremely interested in what this book has to say, and I just haven't had a chance to pick it up yet. But it is definitely up there in terms of a book that I think is going to be very influential and is going to make me think a lot. So you can probably hear my cat screaming now, the one that I dropped so lovingly, Willow. I tried to put her on my shoulder. She did not want that. So Darling Willow is screaming for dinner because it is her dinner time, and I got through 23 books. I've said this a lot, but I'm so excited to get through them. If you've read any of these and you wanna like gush about them or warn me against them, please let me know down in the comments. And as always, thank you for watching, and I hope you read a really, really great book sometime soon. Have a great rest of your day. Okay, bye.